And I would like to invite Marat to join me. So Marat, the time of your presentation, your case study, it's about scenario modeling in disrupted environment. So Finance Director, Europe Supply Chain, Ecolab, Marat Lomakov. Marat, you're welcome.
Thank you, Larissa. Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting an opportunity to speak here to this audience. So, and what I'm going to talk today is about a couple of insights I've seen from the recent FP&A trend survey, which were striking me, and then how we're addressing this in the company where I currently work in Ecolab. So, well, 2 points which were quite obvious to me. That first of all, more than half of you are saying that you don't have xP&A implemented yet, and 1/3 of you don't even consider it. And about the scenario playing, which is the second point, is you're basically saying that nearly half of you are not able to provide scenarios at all, or it takes you for longer than 1 week to make it happen. So, which is actually, for me, is the same like not making it work. So since the amount of the disruptions we see and the amount of changes we see in the current world is just enormous, and after a week a lot of things can be changed. And I'll be talking about some of those disruptions on the next slide, and also linking back to what Thomas was saying. So already before COVID, the supply chains were disrupted quite a bit with different questions around climate, geopolitics, cybersecurity. And only when we were thinking that, okay, COVID is now slowly going away, so there are new events happening on Europe continent, which actually amplified the amount of stress and disruptions to supply chain quite a bit. And recently, natural gas became one of the highest topics for chemical industries, since it serves not only as one of the key energy sources, but also as a feedstock for many produced raw materials. This all brings not only the fear of the fueling inflation, but also simply questions the availability of certain materials in the market. So like, well, it's not about the price, it's about whether we are able to buy it or not. And I'm going to share some examples of it, how we are addressing it within our company. So, and this is basically how the xP&A is implemented and working at the moment here. So on the next slide, I'm going to talk about the model which we are using here to facilitate the discussion, facilitate the calculation. So that's basically a model which is going from the products which we are producing down to the raw materials which we are buying from our vendors, but then also following further down the path to understand what are the key commodities are actually impacting those raw materials, so that later on we can understand how specific market movements can affect the raw materials prices we are using as a feedstock for our applications. And we use this model broadly in xP&A application. So, and it's stored because it contains quite a vast amount of data. It's stored, of course, in a cloud database where some of the calculations are made. And then on the next slide, I'm going to talk how we are using it in some of the analytics we are doing. So, like, well, one of the examples of xP&A in action, so which I want to talk about, is basically how we can go beyond the classical P&A and not only look at financial data, which I believe all of us are analyzing on a pretty much daily basis, such as sales and margin for given product categories, businesses. But here we can bring on top of this data also the information about what is happening with the supply of these of raw materials impacting those products. Are they in shortage? What is the market situation around it? And if there are certain capacity constraints, or there is certain impacts which would require a team to make an extra effort to bring these raw materials into the company, so then what are we going to do about it? And then by connecting it with some of the information on the margin and sales, we can say, well, if those SKUs, for example, are low sales and also low margin, but on top it requires quite some effort to even buy and find these materials, so what kind of like choices can we make? And is it really a right investment from the company perspective to go this way? So, and it creates the whole set of new questions and new potential decisions to be made. But this is all a static view, so because we are here analyzing the historical view. Now, like, well, if we take it forward, so on the next, I will be talking about some of the examples how we can start amending this model with for scenario planning. So that's where it becomes quite a powerful tool for the future discussion. So, and the key thing here is how to start looking into the future and start anticipate impact, not necessarily talking about what was happening in the past. So, and of course, because of the quite a large amount of data we are having here, so it's very difficult to start simulating everything altogether. So, and we decided to go with a couple of key commodities, which basically market helped us to define, so to speak, so which is natural gas and the oil. And we started with definition of scenarios we want to look into. So, i.e., what are the border conditions, so to speak, what are the prices we want to understand out of these scenarios. And we defined certain data points here. So, okay, what would be the price to analyze? And here, the question to be asked always is, well, can it be possibly real? Because if it's completely out of reality, then the whole trust into the model will be broken later on. So, but at the same time, it also should bring some potential outcomes into the future, so that we can stimulate some fruitful conversations out of it. So once we define these, so then we can see, okay, what are the materials actually affected by those feedstocks? So, and we are looking at two potential impacts. The one is direct, so i.e., what are the materials directly impacted by oil or natural gas, but also like how the energy, which is indirect impact, and energy is also sourced to quite a big extent from the natural gas here, is impacting the cost of these materials. Once this is all done, so like we calculated some of the core parameters in our cloud database. However, unfortunately, it's not that flexible, so the finishing we had to do in Excel. So that's where old good Excel is still kind of like a powerful tool to make to give us some more flexibility into analytics we are doing. And once it is there, so we can have a look at a range of potential outcomes. And what is important also to break it down by the different businesses, so that we can have appointed conversations with them. After all of this, we're having the management conversation, of course, and that's where the action discussions and different decisions are made. So it seems to be quite straightforward and smooth on this slide. However, the road is, of course, bumpy. And on the next slide, I'm going to share with you some of the advices or some of the experiences which were helping us to overcome some of the barriers here. So, and of course, that's also how we look in the future for potential other implementation of those cases. So, first of all, we need to anticipate the impact using the business acumen, knowing the business drivers which are affecting our business. And that's basically means that we need to stay in connection to the reality where we are in, because if finance people are suddenly coming and starting to talk about some nonsense, like no of the business leaders will be accepting any of our recommendation. Well, we know that our data is not accurate, and that's not always accurate and not always precise, and that's what I'm talking about, point number 2. And sometimes we need to make compromises in between how quick we can provide certain scenarios and what is the accuracy of this. And here I'm not encouraging anyone to compromise on the quality, but rather avoiding to get to 100% perfection by spending weeks and weeks and weeks on those scenario modeling, because by that point of time you can realize that these scenarios are already not even needed anymore. And finally, a couple of more points on how to improve the robustness and quality of these models. So with the new data coming in, so test your model, make it credible, review the assumption, and show that it can be trusted further. So, and of course, if the new factors are coming in into the model, so then keep updating it. So like stay in touch with the reality, as I said in the very beginning. So, and this will define your success on this path. So that's what I wanted to share with you today, and now I'm curious to learn more about your experiences in this journey.